Welcome to our live Run Elite, and I'm very excited to be here with you today. We're going to do something a little bit different. So if you come for story time and a little bit of entertainment where you can learn as well and learn about one of the greatest runners in history, definitely one of the greatest runners in American history, and definitely one of the greatest runners in world history, because the guy that we are talking about today is none other than Gerry Lindgren, and you can see his book right up there. We're going to be talking about him a little bit in depth here. I've got a whole bunch of notes that I want to share with you about things that I've learned about Gerry Lindgren. So hello, if you're popping on YouTube or on Facebook, either one, I've got the comments open here. I'll be able to see what you say. Scott says, I'm hoping this will be great. Me too, Scott. Let's do the best that we're capable of. Let me know your name, where you're from, how you're doing, questions you have, and at the end, I'll come back. I'll try to keep an eye on the comments a little, and at the end, I'll come back and I'll answer whatever questions or anything. So what we're doing here, this is not a comprehensive biography of the man, because if you want that, you should just pick up his book, which is right there, Gerry Lindgren's book on running. And there's a lot about this guy, but there's so much that we can learn from him. And I'm going to take you through kind of step by step. I've done a lot of research on this guy, and let me tell you why we're talking about him. So a little bit of backstory, okay? And I invite you, we have a series going called Coffee with the Greats. And hey, Philip, good to see you from Scotland. Grab yourself a drink and sit and chill with me. This is to kind of anchor that we're just casual here today. This isn't coffee. I don't drink coffee anymore, but it is this fun little chai tea blend that's got all kinds of fun stuff. Decaf, all organic, ginger, cardamom, black pepper, etc., etc. It keeps going. So grab yourself a drink and let's chill out together and take a little break. So let's start here. I heard about Gerry Lindgren, as maybe you did, because I was a fan of Steve Prefontaine, right? And I watched those movies back in high school, Prefontaine and Without Limits. If you've only seen Prefontaine and not Without Limits, do yourself a favor, please go watch it like right now. But I learned about Gerry Lindgren because he was, a competitor with Prefontaine. I think I read about him for the first time in Prefontaine's biography, which I've got somewhere on my shelf back here. And Lindgren was a real badass. This guy, we don't really know him for like having all these Olympic gold medals and world records, but he actually did have a world record, and he actually won a record. No other runner has ever done this. 11 NCAA titles. 11. He won cross country 3 years in a row. And you maybe have even seen the picture for this video that you're on here was Prefontaine and Lindgren kind of reaching for that cross country finish, NCAA championship, and Lindgren wins. Lindgren is a badass. One of the guys, Prefontaine, that we hold in such high esteem, and I love Prefontaine. Lindgren beat him a number of times, but we don't know him as much because they didn't make movies about him. He wasn't quite as dramatic. In fact, he was like the least dramatic person in public possible. And that's where we're going to start. Let's go back to high school. Watching from Arlington, Virginia. Good afternoon from West Virginia. Hello. It's good to see you all. So those of you who have already picked up a copy of my book, you might be familiar with Gerry Lindgren. And if we open up to page 127, I tell a story in there. And it's a story that I give full credit to. I kind of lifted almost straight from Gerry Lindgren's book. Now, how did I get this book? How did I hear about it? I just kind of like did some research. I couldn't find it online. This was about 12 years ago. So I wrote to Gerry Lindgren in Hawaii, and he wrote back to me, and he sent me to Andrew Snow, Dare to be Great, Gerry Lindgren. So I treasure this thing. It doesn't travel with me because I want to keep it crisp, but wow, I learned so much from this guy. So much. So let's share a couple stories. In high school, okay, what did this guy do in high school? He decided that he was going to go out for the cross-country team. And this is where it all begins. And he's a freshman, and he goes to his high school for the tryouts, essentially, day one of cross-country. And he tries to get into the building. And he goes up to these two big doors, the front entrance to the high school, and he pulls on it, and it's locked, and he can't get in. And he pulls on the other one, and it's locked, and he can't find his way in. And he tries, and he tries, and he tries, and he puts his foot up on the door, and he can't get in the building. So he says, maybe it's not today. Maybe I got the wrong day. And he's about to leave. But as soon as he's about to leave, this little girl with this mousy voice, this small freshman girl says, "Excuse me." And she goes by him, and she pulls the door open and goes in. and he just was too weak to be able to open the door. And this isn't me saying this. This is Lindgren himself, almost direct quote from his book saying this. So he slid in through the door and he made it into the cafeteria where they were assembling for cross country. And he found the upperclassmen just snickering and laughing. They all knew that there was the scrawny kid on the other side of the door who couldn't get in, and they were making fun of him. So he put his head down and he was kind of sheepish. And he thought about leaving, but he says if he had any self-respect, he would have left, but he didn't have that either. So he stayed around like a beaten dog almost. And his coach came in, Tracy Walters, and with like a militant style, he commanded these men. He said, if you're not here for cross country, get out. And he said, nobody who is here past this moment here is going to leave before the end of the season. So get out if you're not fully committed. And so Gerry, too shy to leave, he was basically fully committed to cross country. They went out onto the track, and Walters told them to go for a lap on the track, whatever they were doing, a mile, a lap. I think it was just one lap. And so the boys all took off in a pack, and Lindgren was getting elbowed in the face. He was so short. He weighed something like 80 something pounds or 70 something pounds. He was this little tiny guy, and he was literally getting elbowed in the face. And so they did a lap, and he got his butt kicked. And then on the second lap, he decided not again. So instead of getting bullied by these kids, he sprinted out into the front, and he was clear and he had daylight, and he ran and he ran and he was free until all the other kids swallowed him up and passed him, and he was last. And he felt ashamed. And then in the locker room, his coach came up to him and said, Lindgren, I'm actually going to read to you what he says his coach said. And this will be a direct quote from Lindgren himself. Okay. His coach came in to the locker room and he said, you have an opportunity most athletes never get, Gerry, and I'm not sure you're aware of it. Other students are in the back alley and they're leaning against the auto shop while smoking cigarettes and going nowhere with their lives just because they don't realize that they can do better. But because of your extremely small size and your high squeaky voice, you have an opportunity to change their lives for the better just by being Gerry Lindgren. When you took the lead in practice yesterday, every one of the runners on our team ran considerably faster. Your small size and your lanky stature allowed you to have that effect on other people. By leading that way, you can show other runners what they can do and how they can be better. If Gerry Lindgren can do it, they'll know that they can do it. They won't want to be embarrassed. Your size and your voice make it possible for you to influence other people in a way that larger, more athletic bulk dudes could never do. You can change other people's lives in a positive way, and I want you to know that you have tremendous opportunity, Gerry. You can use your wimpiness for something bigger than yourself. That's from Gerry Lindgren's coach, Tracy Walters. So Lindgren now had a reason to run, and he started to train. So he got his butt kicked, he got elbowed in the face, and he decided that he can run, not for himself, but in order to make other people better. Because when this nerdy, puny, scrawny kid is way out in front beating them, these guys, they don't want to be beat by that kid. So they're going to push harder to try to beat him. And his role became, I'm going to not run for me, but I'm going to pull the rest of the team ahead. And so he started running for something bigger than himself. And he started to train. But back in the 60s, and this was the early 60s, we didn't know all that much about training, especially a young kid without internet access. He just started to run, and he didn't know what he was doing. So he didn't know how much he should run or how fast he should run. So he just started training once a day, twice a day, 3 times a day. It gets crazier. But in high school, as a freshman, he's training 3 times per day. And his day would go like this. According to Gerry, an interview with him just a few years ago, he said, I would get up. So this was during the summer. I would get up at 7 o'clock. I would run 17 to 18 miles in high school. Then I'd come back, I would eat, and I would sleep. And I would sleep until about 2 o'clock, at which point I would get up and I would go for another run. And I would run between telephone poles, and I would sprint a couple, and then I'd relax a couple, and I'd sprint a couple. I'd do my afternoon sprints. Then I'd come back, I'd eat, and then I'd sleep again. And then about 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning, I'd get up and I'd go for an easy 10-miler. 3 runs a day, one of them in the middle of the day in high school, logging 25 to 30 miles per day. Let's just like mic drop right there. This is a good moment to take a sip of your hot beverage if you have one. How many of us have ever done that? Ever. And he did it daily in high school. Now, it sounds almost like hyperbole. Like he couldn't do this. But he did. In high school, something else happened that really transformed who he was as a runner. he got to be pretty good. You can imagine that if he didn't get injured and he trained like this, that he would get really good. Well, they took him over to Russia when he was 18 years old. He's in high school, for goodness sake. By the way, he's already made the Olympic team for the 10,000 meters. He went over to Russia and he competed against the Russians. And no American had ever come better than third place against the Russians on Russian turf in this meet that they were doing. And a high school kid, Gerry Lindgren, beat them. Number one, he upset the Russian team that had never been beaten by an American on their turf by a high school kid. Now this dude is really on the radar. People know who he is now. And he's qualified for the Olympics. He's going to Tokyo, where Billy Mills ran. He was in the same race as Billy Mills, actually. That really famous race. I digress. We won't talk about that race here. So I am going to share a couple of videos with you as well as we progress. But I want you to hear, I'm going to tell you a couple of stories that are kind of just fun that came from Gerry himself. But how did I get these stories? Well, some of them, if you dig online, you can find some of this. But I actually wrote to Gerry. Not only did he write back to me and give me this book, but that was like 13 years ago. 12, 13 years ago, I wrote to him and I sent him a copy of my book. And I did this months and months ago. I wanted him to be an early reader so that I could maybe put his name on the back with Bill Rogers there. And Gerry wrote back to me. He lives in Hawaii. And I'm very honored because he wrote back to me this letter here. This big, I mean, look how long this is. And he told me these great stories about his running, about in high school. About who he'd race against and the times he would hit and what he was thinking. And, you know, he's just an amazing man. But I wrote back to him and I asked him, okay, man, I'm so inspired by your stories. Would you please do me a favor and just let me know if you can get behind this book or not? And he did. And so actually future copies of this book, if you got the book already, it's got Bill Rogers, but future copies of the book, it's going to have Gerry Lindgren right underneath and actually have a third endorsement. But I'll save that for another video. Gerry Lindgren is going to be on the back of the book. And what did he say? I've got his other video, So he sent me an endorsement here. And Run Elite is a guidebook to great running and racing. Andrew Snow has compiled a great resource. So I kind of abbreviated it and it just says it's a great guidebook to running and racing. But Gerry Lindgren also, you know, I feel honored that if you just ask for what you want, in life, kind of, sometimes you might get it. I wanted more information about this guy, and he just wrote to me again and again 3 times, and it's like, I got it. So let me share some of the stories that he tells, and then I'll share 2 videos with you that you're really gonna like. One of them just kind of highlights who he is, and one of them shows this really cool victory that I think you'll remember for a long time to come. So let's watch one of them here. Very short video. This is just, I'm gonna turn the sound off for this one. And I'm just going to talk to you. So just in 2022, Gerry Lindgren was inducted into the Collegiate Athletic Hall of Fame. It took until 2022, but as an 18-year-old, he beat the Russians. He was a world record holder in the 6 mile. He'd run over 350 miles per week, 11-time NCAA champion, beating Steve Prefontaine, even the famous man. You may have not heard of him, but this lanky kid has really showed us what is possible. There he is. What a guy. So that's his video. I don't take credit for that video. That came from his induction into the Collegiate Athletic Hall of Fame 2022. So full credit to them. But I just want you to see a couple of pictures. I'm getting goosebumps here. So if you didn't know who Gerry Lindgren was, now aren't you kind of interested? Okay, let's talk about some more of his training because that's super fun. And by the way, this doesn't come from me. I'm going to tell you one of the other ways I learned about Gerry Lindgren. This book here, Daniel's Running Formula, original copy from the 90s. This thing was my Bible for a long time. There's actually a mini biography on Gerry Lindgren right there by Jack Daniels. And what does Jack Daniels say? Because Jack Daniels knew him as well. What does Jack Daniels say? He says a couple things. Number one is that Gerry's fastest 400 meters was 52 seconds. Now, for a distance runner back in the early 60s, that's pretty good. Distance guys these days can go faster, but not really. 52 is pretty good, you know? But that 52 came as the last lap of a 5,000. Pretty good, eh? Now here's the kicker. Ready? Here's how Gerry raced differently. I'm going to tell you about how he trained differently and raced differently. Here's how he raced differently than anybody else ever. According to Jack Daniels, and this is true, it's just objective. Gerry Lindgren went out 30 consecutive races faster than world record race pace for the first half. Some might say that he's the ultimate rabbit. Imagine that. Who has the balls to be, he's this scrawny kid who gets elbowed in the face. He looks kind of like geeky, nerdy, and he's taken out 30 consecutive races. And it's maybe easy to hit world record pace for the first lap if you just like go sprint, but he did it through the first half of 10,000 meter races. He's going through the 5K faster than anybody ever had en route to a world record. And then he would normally get swallowed up because he ran so hard, but not always. They didn't catch him. This guy could also close in 52 seconds. So he'd go out really fast, faster than world record pace, and then he would close in 52 seconds. Now, can you see how this guy is starting to become difficult to beat? And it started because he wasn't running for himself, but he wanted to get away from the guys elbowing him in the face. So he learned how to go out fast, and then he just learned how to drag them along. In his book, he talks about this, that the other guys he'd go out fast, the other guys would start to catch him, and he'd be stubborn and wouldn't let them pass so that they could run better. And the result was that he would run better, and he just would end up first across the line again and again. And then he sort of became this better runner. But according to Daniels, not only did he pace his runs like this, he also, and this is in Daniels' book and it's in Gerry Lindgren's book, he ran how many miles per week? What do you think? He would get up to 350 miles per week. Now that's so amazing because ultra runners who are very good at the 100 mile, the best 100 mile runners in the world, they don't run 350 miles a week unless it's like a 6-day stage race or something. And this kid in college. So here's what happened in college. All right. He went to, a little bit about his high school. Let's review. In high school, he went from like nothing embarrassment to being qualified for the Olympics in 1964, going over to Russia and basically embarrassing them and running 3 times per day, 25 to 30 miles per day. When he got to college and he went to University of Washington at Spokane. And here's what happened. Where is this story? I'll just have to go off memory because I don't remember where this story is. Where is this story? I think it's in my book. That's why. So I'll just tell you. But this is on page 120. Yeah, 129, 130 in my book. Yeah, here we go. So when he went to college, he started running 5 times per day. And one of the exercise physiologists, or one of the nurses there, warned him, and they pulled Gerry during his physical. Now, Gerry didn't have physical gifts. His resting heart rate was 105 beats per minute. Not when he was like later in life, but when he started running and he got his physicals, 105 beats per minute. That's insane. His heart was not healthy. In fact, he was not allowed to compete in track in high school for the first 2 years. He did cross country because it's out in the woods. On the track, he was not allowed to because he would fall down too much. He literally didn't have the coordination. It sounds like hyperbole, like who's actually this uncoordinated? But he wasn't allowed to run because he would fall down and just trip everybody all the time. Again, he would just trip himself. So he was very strange with his body, but he made the most of it. Okay. And when he got to college, he ran 5 times per day. And the nurse said to him, if you do this, you're going to hurt yourself and you're never going to run again. You have to stop doing this. And he was running at the time 250 miles per week when the nurse told him this. And he decided that he wanted to prove her wrong, that she didn't know what she was talking about. So he upped it and he ran 5 times per week, 350 miles per week. Sounds insane, right? Sounds almost like you'd have to make it up. But when you read like how he did it, running 5 times a day in the middle of the night, and he only weighed like 80 something pounds, right? So there's not that much impact. He doesn't get injured. You get to see that this guy was a real badass. So what happened when he started training harder? Well, he came up with a couple of principles that I'm going to share with you. So if you have your notebook, you may want to write these down. Gerry Lindgren, I've heard him twice speak on this. So I'll give you the abbreviated version, then the longer version from his book, and then we'll watch the end of a race with him. We'll watch the last lap of this really cool race that you're going to love. But here's what he says. A high schooler was interviewing him just a few years ago, and he said, as a distance runner, you need 2 things. Number 1 is you need to get in great shape. You need to get in great shape. And he references running 30 miles a day in high school. He's like, you got to just get yourself to this level where you're flippin' fit and you can run far and you can run fast and you're bulletproof and you're just really top notch. You need to get there, but then you've only just begun. What Lindgren says is that you then need to have a style. He says that's just the beginning. You need to have a self. You need to have a style so that instead of trying to win, you have to become the kind of person who, when they're running, has to be beaten, because your style is to go out really fast, or your style is to outkick everybody at the end, or your style is to be stubborn and never be passed, or maybe your style is to whatever, surge, whatever it is. Like, you come up with your own thing so that you become a force to be reckoned with, and people become reactive to you instead of you being at the reaction to them. And you hear about this in great feats of sport and business and life. It's like, be at the cause, not the effect. That's me saying that, but Gerry is saying the same thing. Be at the cause the race to be excellent, cause the others to chase you down. Don't be at the effect, like you're reacting. And Prefontaine did the same thing. Prefontaine was a front runner. He went out hard because he wanted to lead the race. He said, when you set the pace, you control the race. So Lindgren, same thing. He demanded, and when he was racing, make no mistake, he's going to set the pace, and you're not going to get off the hook easy. Now, as he moved, I'll give you the 4 out of my book here, but I'm reminded of the story that he told that when he was about 18 years old, it was in Russia. It might have been the same Russian meet. He's trying to get, it's just a fun story. So let's diverge for a second. Take another sip of your drink here. You want to hear this. This is funny. I think it's funny. Love your stories about Gerry Lindgren and that you got his book and wrote to each other, and now he's endorsed your amazing book. Yes, thank you, Karen. All right, check this out. When Gerry was in Russia, he had such a hard time. 2 things happened to him while he was over there that were insane. One was that he's going to the meet in order to beat these Russians. And he gets to the athletic entrance, and they won't let him in because he's so short and he's so skinny that they don't believe that he's an athlete. They think he's a kid trying to weasel his way in backstage. So they won't let him in. And he says, please let me in. My race is coming up. The 10,000 meters. My name is Gerry Lindgren. Let me in. They're going to start. They're calling to the line. I have to go. And they wouldn't let him in. They wouldn't budge. And he tried and he tried and he had to give up. So he went around to the side door and he tried to get in, and they wouldn't let him in there either. And there was like a bouncer, like a guard, who, I don't know what, he like did something to his head. He like pushed him by his head or picked him up and like pushed his head or something like that. Pushed him down, like physically. This was the 60s, right? I don't know, maybe they could get away with this. And they just pushed him out, like physically violent. So he went around to another side door and he waited for it to open, and he broke in and he ran in, and they started chasing him, and he was running down the hallway because they think this kid's trying to break in. And he runs out onto the track, and the starter is like, where have you been? We've been calling your name. And they've been calling Gerry Lindgren, final call to the track, and they're waiting for him. And he finally gets to the starting line, and the security realizes it was a mistake and they back off. But he had to break in because he's too small. And then he got on the track, and then he kicked everybody's butt. The rest is history, right? But it's not over then. He comes back to where he's staying, and he's doing a training run, and he's running by this airport, this Russian airport, and they're doing this military exercise. He's going up over this hill, and he can see them like marching. They have like some vehicles and guns and like a bunch of soldiers, right? They're doing some military exercise, and he sees them like coming in onto the road that he's on. So there's this other road he can diverge on, but he sees all these soldiers coming in on that road too, and he's like, uh-oh, I better try to diverge because they're doing an exercise and I'm going to get in the way. But he wasn't in the way. Nobody ran in the 60s. Hardly anybody. It was weird to run down the road. People didn't do it. So they assume that you must be running from something, that you did something bad. So the military chased him down, caught him, arrested him, and put him in Russian prison. And he's scared. He knows that some people don't come back from things like this. And, I don't know how he got out, but obviously he got out because he's alive today. But this guy really had a hard time because of what he was doing, how weird he was doing it, how unorthodox it was at the time. And he got himself into a couple of pickles. So throughout all of this amazing running, world record pace, setting a world record in the 6 mile, 11 NCAA championships. We can learn 4 things from Gerry Lindgren. So here's your lesson for this, right? We've been talking, having fun. Let's give you a lesson that you may apply to your own running. Then we'll finish it off with a video. Principle number 1 is, and this is straight out of my book. I wrote you here. So if you like these, consider picking up a copy of Run Elite. You can get it on Amazon. It's number 1 right now. Lindgren knew himself well. and he ran in a way that brought him the most fulfillment. So principle number 1 is break the mold of how you should be training. Now, Lindgren didn't know how to train. He said, direct quote, I didn't realize what I was doing. I didn't know that running 350 miles a week was that crazy. These other people were crazy. We didn't have training books. We didn't have, I was just running. So break the mold of how you should be training, because you shouldn't run 350 miles a week. You also shouldn't go out at a positive split and then slow down. You also shouldn't get up in the middle of the night to run and train. But he did, and he did, and he did, and he was one of the greatest of all time. So we don't want to follow a script for training that is so rigid. Tuesday, interval day, Wednesday, threshold day, Saturday, long run, all the time, this mileage, up 3 weeks, down 1 week. It's like we don't want to cookie cutter ourselves so much, because it doesn't give you room to be yourself and break the mold. Currently, yesterday I ran 3 times. There were short runs. I got a total of 12 miles for the day. So it was like 1 longer run, 2 pretty short runs. That's just what I had time for. I was very busy on coaching calls yesterday. So I ran 3 times and I loved it. I'm thinking of actually just like experimenting with running 3 times. I'm running doubles most days and it's just fun. At this point in my running, I'm liking it. Getting into, I've got a 100-miler coming up, and it's like I just want to run high frequency, because I've done high mileage, but I've never done super high frequency. Let's experiment. It goes against the mold. Why would you run 3 times a day? That's stupid. Just run 2 and get that extra break. Yeah, it's working for me. It worked for him. He did 5. Okay, so break the mold of how you think you should be training. And I go into it in depth in the book. Principle number 2 is run with your heart, not with your legs. And what Gerry says is that when you run unselfishly for the benefit, Karen, I'm thinking of you right now, happiness and welfare of other people, you tap into an energy source you can never imagine. So I'm going to ask you right now, if you're getting something out of this video, if you get something from Run Elite from my channel, go ahead, go to the comments here. We're live right here, but if you're on the replay, I'll come back and look at those comments as well. I want you to think of a way that you can run. Type it in the comments or just write it down for yourself, for me, but share it with us. I want you to think about how you can run in a way that's not just about you getting something. Like, we want the time. We want to feel good. We want to win. We want a place in our age group. And it's about us. It's about me. It's about me. It's about me. I want this. I'm going to run hard because I want to win and I want to do this. And that's okay. You got to take care of yourself. In fact, you should. Please do. Please take even better care of yourself. But when the going gets really tough, it's normally not enough, is it? So how many of you have kids or someone who you really love? And what would you do for them? What would you do to save their life? What would you do if they needed you? And the answer is probably, well, I would do anything. I would do anything for my kid. But would you do anything for yourself? I don't know. Sometimes we don't perform the best if it's just us. But when there's somebody else outside of us who we love, who we care about, and when we run for them, to help them, to raise money for a charity, or to inspire them to run faster, or to compete and bring the best out of each other, or whatever it is, or be part of a relay team, or run for your creator and not just for yourself, or whatever it is, right? You have more capacity to do so much more. And it's like that with everything, isn't it? Not just our running. So I want you to go ahead and type just an idea of what you can run for that is greater than yourself in your training and in your racing. Now, it should mostly be for yourself, but let's not stop there. So go ahead and type it in. Later, I'll come back and check. Principle number 3. We got 4 total. This is number 3. Every disadvantage carries with it the seed of an equivalent advantage. Now, I chose those words based off of Napoleon Hill, a great teacher. I suggest you look him up. Author of Think and Grow Rich, many, many books. That's his most famous one. If you haven't learned from Napoleon Hill, you're missing out. This guy is like one of the best teachers for self-development that we could ever find. But with every seed with every disadvantage comes not an equivalent advantage, just the seed of an equivalent advantage if you nurture it. So no matter what happens, if you're injured, so right now I was out at this river today and I smashed my toe into a rock and it really hurts right now and I'm kind of limping, but I'm still going to go out run after this. I hope my toe's okay. But you know what? I kept telling my toe, I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, thank you. I get the little hopo ono prayer. And I decided that if my toe hurts and I can't run, Because it's supposed to be. Because I would have otherwise got mauled by a bear or hit by a truck or overtrained and hurt myself. So it's all working out for you if you allow it to. And this is something Gerry Lindgren had a lot of adversity in his life, especially after he retired, and he's making the most of it, you know? And principle number 4, insanely effective base training is the key. Now, this is what Gerry Lindgren did. Now, training progressed from like the 50s through now. It's progressed a lot. There's been a lot of theories of thought. You've probably heard of Arthur Lydiard style training. Arthur Lydiard, a great coach. And if we were to take his trainings, his philosophy, and kind of just like boil it down to like a sentence, which is not fair because he has a lot to contribute. But you might say that he had periodization of training where you have high volume of running and high speed, even like strides, high volume of running that later on in the season you cash it in and you run lower volume, but more quality, and you'll run faster then. So Gerry Lindgren did this too. He ran up to 350 miles per week, and he averaged 270 miles per week for an entire year. That's a lot of miles. But then when it came to time to race, he would go from 250, 350 miles per week, and he would chop it all the way down to just 70. Now, 70 may be a lot of miles for you or I, but for a guy who's running 300, 70 is like a warm-up. He'll do that in a day sometimes, right? 70 miles a week, but he would do it at really fast pace. He would do it at faster than 10,000 meter pace. So he's getting in 70 miles. Warm-ups and cooldowns, he might be getting in, 45 or 50 miles. But that's a lot of training at faster than race pace. And then, boom, he would set a world record, NCAA champion, world class, Olympian, etc., etc. It worked for him. So that's the final message, is base training is really key. If you have a big base, then you can stack whatever you want on top of it, really. You don't even need to stack anything. Just base training alone will give you an outstanding performance. And don't forget, base training is not slow, easy running. If you get one thing away from this, aside from some crazy stories, base training is not slow, easy running. It's slow, easy running, lots of it, and also the other end of the spectrum, which is raw speed development, which comes from hill sprints that are very short. It comes from strides. It comes from other fast twitch muscle development, like lifting weights, but heavy weights, things like that. Okay. Short intervals, very short intervals. And I break all of this down inside the book here. Those of you who have read it, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, I break this down in in fact, not only is there a chapter on base training, but then there's a chapter on how to set up your base training, because we go very deep with base training. It's like, a fifth or so of the whole book. So we are done. I hope you got something. We're not done with this video. I'm going to share a clip with you here, a race of Gerry Lindgren's, but I hope that you've found some entertainment, some fun here. Let's go a couple comments and then I'll show you this video. Find it difficult to run for another reason other than myself. All right, Philip. I'm just taking that in. I'll read the rest here. Not sure if that makes sense or selfish or not. It's not selfish. No. Or not, but I mostly run for me. Hard to change that mindset. Let's talk about that for a second. It's not selfish to take care of yourself. In fact, what I've found is that very many people, I dare say the vast majority of people, when they get into a position of investing in themselves, they think they don't deserve it. They don't get themselves the nice clothes or take care of themselves or go get that massage. They'll gift a massage to someone else, but they won't gift one to themselves. They'll tell other people to eat healthy, but they'll eat shitty. They'll take care of their kids to make sure they get a good night's sleep, and then they'll stay up all night on their phone. They don't take care of themselves. Taking care of yourself is not selfish, because you can only give what it is that you have to give. If you don't have much, you can't give much. If you're a billionaire, sometimes people like to poo-poo on billionaires, but, when was the last time, you or anyone maybe you do, maybe you know some of these people, but when was the last time the average person, I'll say, gave $1 billion to charity? If you have $100 billion, you can give $1 billion away. You have a lot to give because you have so much. Thy cup runneth over, right? So taking care of yourself is not selfish. You need to do it. Please continue to do it. But when it comes to pushing through the pain, leveling yourself up. So what would you do for someone who you love, right? So Philip, you don't have to, you can type this if you want, but I'm just asking you, would you do more? Would you train harder? I have a snippet in my book that talks about like this James Bond villain, like lowering your family over a battery acid thing, like, haha, and you have to like save them. It's like, what could you do to save them? And you bet you could run faster. You could run harder than you ever did before. You could give it more than you ever have before. Why? Because it's not about you. So in your training, make it about you. Make it about you because it's your time. And maybe during the race, make it about you. But what it means, okay? What it means should be more than about you. Because if you crush your time and you run a PR at that marathon and you cross the finish line and you don't have anybody in your life who cares that you did it, nobody gives a hoot, nobody to celebrate with, nobody to tell the story about, nobody to congratulate you, nobody to listen to you, nobody to rub your feet. No, like nobody cares. Nobody online even who will even listen to your story. No, nobody. It kind of didn't matter, did it? We love our victories because we can share them. And so that's what it means. It means like share them with love. Share them with someone. Give them a gift. Like maybe take someone, I don't want to give you what you could do here, but like maybe take someone to a race with you and travel and get a hotel and have fun and like take a friend or your wife or your husband and like make it like this thing and take them out for a nice dinner and you like take care of them because they're there to support you. And then the wheel goes around. They give you support and love and you give them, and it's like this love, you know, it's this companionship. And that is very valuable. I'd say that's more valuable than running the time, running the race, getting the time, putting your hands up, getting the medal, going home, and life goes on the same, right? I'm going to actually show the video and then I'll come back and finish with comments so that if you don't want to hear reaction to comments, you don't have to stick around. All right, here's the final video for you. I hope you enjoy this. I've taken a video in 1969 with Gerry Lindgren, of course. You got to hear the lineup here. And I cut the race. It's a 2-mile race. And I took it and I cut it down to just the last lap. So let me tell you what happened up until the last lap. And then we'll jump into it here. And you'll see the last 90 seconds or so. Gerry Lindgren's in this race. Steve Prefontaine is in this race. In 1969, Prefontaine is quite a badass. He's like top of the world, you know? This is 3 years before the Munich Olympics. He's doing very well. But we also have two other runners. We also have Frank Shorter. Now, Frank Shorter is right there. Frank Shorter, one of the greatest American marathoners to ever live. Great distance runner. He's in this race. And then also Marty LaCory. Marty LaCory was a, I forget all his accolades. He was a miler who was, perhaps, I believe he set the world record. Marty LaCory, for sure. At this time, he was the world record holder in the mile. So all four of these guys are racing each other. Sounds like a dream race. What happens? Well, coming into 1 lap to go, I'll tell you what happened up to that point. Prefontaine and Lindgren, they're neck and neck. Neck and neck. And they break away from LaCory and Frank Shorter. They break away, so probably one of these two guys, Lindgren and Prefontaine, is going to win. And both of these guys are Prefontaine's the rock star, right? He wins everything. And they're racing each other, and Prefontaine pulls ahead with like 2 laps to go, and it looks like he's going to win. But Lindgren says, and he passes him. And it looks like Lindgren might win, but not so fast. Prefontaine is a badass. Prefontaine passes him again because he's got that grit. And we come up to the last lap, and let's watch.
Done lap. Just a stride separating Lindgren and Prefontaine. 7:46.7 the time with 1 lap to go, so we're going to have a time of somewhere around 8:45 if they sprint on the last lap, as we believe they will. Lindgren moving out now down the back straight, lengthening out away from Prefontaine, who is obviously not up to Lindgren's tempo here. Gerry looking very good. He spent the last few weeks up at Lake Tahoe running in the rarefied air there, and certainly has benefited him because he's in excellent form here. He has about 200 yards to go now as he's in the middle of the turn, sprinting nicely. Prefontaine moving as best he can, but he's about 15 yards to Lindgren's arrears, and Gerry coming off the turn down the straight. Good knee lift, good arm action. 15 yards to go. And as Lindgren into the tape, winning this 2-mile, Prefontaine finishes second. LaCory, summoning a bit of a sprint, will finish in 3rd position. And Shorter coming across in 4th. The official times in the 2-mile run: Gerry Lindgren 8:45.6, Steve Prefontaine 8:48.8, Marty LaCory 9 minutes flat, Frank Shorter 9:02 flat.
What a race. You can find that on YouTube if you just look up Gerry Lindgren, Steve Prefontaine, 2-mile. You can watch the whole thing. For the sake of time, I didn't want to show the whole thing, just the end. Pretty cool, right? So I'll take any comments that we have here, and then before we jump into that, I'll stick around until I get them all answered. I ask you to pick up your copy of Run Elite if you haven't yet, and in fact, it's doing so well. Let me show you here. I want to say thank you to a couple of you. Oh my goodness! Wow, that was loud. So the book is doing really stinking well. I want you to look up on the screen here. I'm going to share with you. #1 on Amazon for running and jogging. #1 in track and field. Thanks to you guys. We have 5-star comments across the board. So I'm going to put a list up on the screen in a couple seconds here of just thank yous to everybody, to Karen, Marilyn, Shannon, Ann, Mike, Michelle, Tim, Georgia, Patrick, Carl, Max, Mr. Fib, Jackie, Gary, I can't read them as fast enough, Dennis, Frank, John, Andrew, Jason, Tantric, Alex, Jordan, Brian, Josh, Cole. We have more coming. I just thank all of you. I just want to be able to acknowledge you here. So if you haven't grabbed your copy, please do. It helps support me. You're going to love it. There's great stories in there. And we'll do Coffee with the Greats again. Type in the chat if you have a particular runner. And I want you to think that they're really great, not like an up and coming star, someone who's like solidified in history. And we'll do a breakdown of their training, what lessons we can learn, and maybe I'll see if I can get in touch with them. I do have 2 more Coffee with the Greats with amazing runners. That one will be Bill Rogers, because he's on the back of this book, and one will be a surprise to you. And stay tuned for this, because you're gonna love it. This guy I know personally. I'm friends with him, and he's truly exceptional. In fact, on Sunday, we'll have a podcast with him and I, and then we'll do a Coffee with the Greats with him in the future. But I won't say who it is. Just stay tuned. On Sunday, we've got a podcast coming with him. All right, so I'm hoping my running plants a subtle seed of health and running in my 2 teenage daughters. She's already 19, and my 15-year-old is still a work in progress. Aren't they all? Aren't we all? I hear this. Some of my clients have teenage kids, a lot of them, and I'll tell you, I hear about it. And I remember being this age, and it's like, can you remember being 15? You're not who you are now. You have to make mistakes. You have to lose your way. You have to find all these things. And when I hear parents thinking that their kid is heading down like this wrong path, or like not influenced in the way they need to be, I kind of just honestly don't worry about it. I don't worry about it. And if you want to worry about it, hey, I'm not going to tell you how to parent, but I think that it's all okay. I remember the way that I ate back then, and the way that what I focused on and what I thought I was capable, everything's changed. Everything. And we have to just go through it in order to learn it. And if we don't go through it because someone tells us, I think later in life we'll have to learn it then. So it's maybe better to learn it when you're a kid and you have, the law on your side, and you have someone to take care of you, and people are kind of easy on you when you're a kid. So maybe they'll get into running, but maybe they'll get into something else that's really cool too. Swimming, or another sport, or entrepreneurship. And it's probably okay. But I feel you. I think planting the seed is probably all you can do, isn't it? So just be an example. And a lot of people take up running later in life, in their 30s, 40s, 50s. Even I was talking with a guy who took it up at 60. One of you even in the comments here. And I think that taking up running later in life must have come from a seed that was planted earlier. They probably wanted to run for a while. So maybe you're planting that seed, like you said. And who knows how long it takes to germinate. Maybe a year, maybe 30 years. But that seed is there, and I think that's a good thing to do. Very well put. Thanks. Yes, thank you, Philip. Emily LaRue from Cape Town. That's funny. I have a call with someone from Cape Town, South Africa tomorrow. So it's a meal. It's a meal. Sorry. I'm sorry, Emil. I couldn't see it clear enough. Emil, not Emily. So sorry. Chris Callahan. Pre did not have the kick as other elites. That's true. he had a good kick. I mean, this guy could drop some fast times. He had guts, but he normally drove from far out. 800 to go, 600 to go, 800 to go. That was his style. He made it hurt. He was good because he relied on his endurance to grind down the other kickers. Sure. Yeah, he was good for a lot of reasons. That's one of them. He also was like a rock star because he'd like go out fast, which wasn't like the best for the result necessarily, but he sure did get the crowd pumped. And there's stories that if you have the documentary Fire on the Track, in the bonuses, there's all these interviews with people who knew him and raced with him, and they said if you were at an Oregon meet, University of Oregon meet when Pre was running, you could stand up in the grandstands and scream bloody murder as loud as you can and not even be able to hear yourself because it was that loud, thundering. Like this guy brought people to their feet in a way that was like, ugh. So can you, if you're running a race and there are thousands of people making a deafening noise cheering for you, you're going to be able to summon something amazing too. Like this guy was a rock star, and he, like, so many components of his running allowed him to be great. But I agree, he was a long distance driver who's got to go from home, as they said in the Olympics, right? Anna says, love it. Thank you. Did I miss a comment? Let me know if I missed one. Hello, any mention of Steve Jones in your book? Not specifically. Nope. There's a lot of elite runners I talk about, but I don't talk about Steve Jones. But perhaps that would be a good one to do a coffee with the greats with in the future. Thank you for that recommendation. Philip, another Philip. We have a couple Philips who have reached out recently too. Are you still taking on people for coaching? Yeah, I take on about 10 VIP runners at a time, which goes for a 2-month deep dive. And then I won't explain the whole program here, but it basically comes out to I'll take on about 5 a month, and I've taken on 4 in the last month. So I have room for one more, but we're moving into September, so it'll roll back. I'll have room for about 3 or 4 more. If you're interested in coaching, the best thing to do, if you're interested in coaching, don't just like reach out to me. I mean, you can if you want, but let me make this easy for you so you know what this is about. If you haven't yet, go to andrewsnow.com/webinar. It's actually linked. It will be linked after this YouTube in the description. Webinar. Yeah, go there and you're going to be given a training. It's about 50 minutes and I walk you through 3 core things that will help you. I call it the 3 shifts that elite runners make that you probably don't. And I want you to, if you haven't already, watch that. And at the end of that, I'll give you an opportunity to book a call with me if you want. You can book a call before time, but this is really going to get us up to speed if you want. And then if you want to book a call, do it from there. I'm not going to post it here because then who knows, I may have people just come into the video, look at the comments, click it, book a call, and they weren't really intended to. So do it that way, or message me, email me, or just DM me. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, or drop your email below and I'll email you. And yeah, I am taking clients on, of course. I'm a coach. What kind of coach doesn't take clients on? Yes, great documentary, says Chris. Fire on the Track. Okay, yeah, it's a good one. So we're done here. I'm going to kind of just like riff at you for a minute here with a couple of things you might like. Let me show you a couple of things that are really cool. I don't want to just like tease you, but I think you should know about this. All right, when it comes to running movies, there's a lot of movies out there. Some of them are really good. Some of them are just horse manure, but I like them anyway. I actually have this thumb drive that I wish I could just give to you. I could give it to you for free, but I couldn't sell it or give it because it's like, it might be illegal because they're movies that are copyrighted. So I could give it for free or as a bonus or something like that. But check it out. Here's a couple of like VHS. Maybe you know some of these, maybe you don't. So we're talking about Fire on the Track. I have it on VHS and a DVD. Get yourself a DVD. You can watch it on YouTube probably, but don't, because there's all these bonus interviews with like Bill Bowerman, for goodness sake, and Mac Wilkins and Pat Tyson and Frank Shorter. You want to watch these. They're like 20, 30 minutes each. Get yourself the DVD and watch it. But check this out. Here's some lesser known running movies. Personal Best. I remember I saw this on TV when I was a little kid. it's a weird one. It's kind of crazy, but I'm going to save the best for last. Okay. This one is amazing. Running Brave, the story of Billy Mills. Oh my goodness. Played by Robbie Benson. This movie is fantastic. It's really well done. Highly recommend that one. Chariots of Fire, of course. You probably know that one. But here's one that you've never heard of before, and you're never going to find again. I think I'm the only person on the planet who has this, because I've looked. I referenced this in the book, and I had to cite it. So I had to find it online to cite it, and you can't get this. You can't get it on eBay. You can't get it on Amazon. You can't get it through personal sale. I don't know how I got this thing. It's not on YouTube. It's called Jim Ryan, America's Greatest Miler. And this is a biography that has him and his coach, Bob Timmons, and it takes him through high school, the first high schooler to break 4 minutes in the mile, world record holder in the mile, the 1500 and the 800 meters. I won't tell you what happened at the Olympics in Mexico City, because if you don't know, it's not what you expect, and there's great lessons we can learn from it. Jim Ryan, what a great runner. And then he became senator of Kansas later in life. So I do have this digitally. I've ripped it to digital. I don't know why I'm sharing it with you, other than you said great documentary. If you like great running documentaries, see if you can get this one for yourself. Just look online. Maybe one will pop up on eBay. If it did, I mean, if I sold this on eBay, I'd sell it for like $1,000 because you can't get it and it's priceless. But maybe you can find one. Or write to me and I can give it to you for free on a thumb drive. Just as a service to you. All right, so we are complete. Thank you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. This has been a Coffee with the Greats. Gerry Lindgren, one of my favorite runners ever. I wish I could almost call him a friend, but that would be a lie because I've never met him, so he's not my friend. But we are pen pals. We've written back and forth to each other 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. We've written to each other 6 times. I'm very pleased, very honored. And I'm happy. I hope I did some justice and an honor to him. Gerry, if you ever find yourself on YouTube and you watch this, I really hope that you enjoyed this video. I left a lot out. This guy has quite an incredible life. And I hope I captured some fun stories for you, and that you now know who he is, and that you, most importantly, learned something that you can apply to yourself. And that was the 4 principles that I've highlighted in my book that I shared with you here, that came directly out of Gerry Lindgren's life story here, about how we can be a better runner, how we can be better people through our running, and hopefully achieve at an even enough fraction on the track is what he did, because this guy has been amazing. Thank you so much. Chris says, cool. His training was crazy. He did like 50 400s on the track. Yeah. You know what's even crazier than that? 50 400s? Try 150 400s done every single day. So Jim Ryan was amazing, but oy vey, in terms of, don't even get me started on books. I'll do a YouTube video on my top 10 favorite running books and top 10 favorite like running movies or something. Do yourself a favor. This is one of the best. This is one of like the top 4 running biographies I've ever read. Emil Zatopek, and there are several biographies of him. I chose this one carefully. Today We Die a Little, Emil Zatopek. This book will expand. It's like a history book, going through World War II as well, from the point of view of, a European point of view as opposed to ours. He served in the Czech military, like this kind of stuff. And this guy, his training, I think I have one page. Why is this page marked? Probably because crazy stuff on it. He would do hundreds and hundreds of 400s in a day, and then do it again and again and again and again, day after day. And he only did intervals like this. Emil Zatopek is best saved for another story. But if you like the training of Jim Ryan, please do yourself a favor and learn about Emil Zatopek, because you will love it. Thank you. So that would be great to learn your top 10 running movies and books. What I'm actually going to do is a running coach reacts to 10 running movies. That's why I took these movies and ripped them digitally, so I can do that. So it's coming. It's going to take some time to do that. It's not high priority, but it'll be fun, because some of the movies that I'm going to talk about, you've probably never heard of before, and some of them are so good. And the documentaries, I've got an Olympic documentary from 2004 Athens Olympics on American 5,000 meter runners, and you can't find that anymore either. I had 2 copies of it. One of them got stolen. One of them I still have, so I ripped it. I won't even tell you the name yet. I'll save it for that video, but it's not going to be, Prefontaine and Chariots of Fire and whatever. Like, those might be on there, but I'm going to give you like really cool stuff you never heard of, and it'll be fun. So thank you so much. Hope you have the great rest of your day. I'm going to head out on my second run for the day. I wish you well on your run. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.